Number 5 on our list is a video that surfaced from a YouTuber named X71N. On November 19th, 2019, this YouTuber posted a video of what appears to be Siren Head in his home country of Saudi Arabia. Now, he leaves his home at nighttime because he's hearing some strange sounds coming from a place that's off limits. With his flashlight, he starts to explore and he finds some pretty unsettling stuff. First off, he spots blood. Quite a fair bit of it, in fact, on some rocks. Undeterred though, he keeps trekking on, but as he goes, a weather forecast echoes throughout the video. This forecast is for some dangerous weather happening in the area. Now, I'm not really sure why Siren Head would want this. I mean, one would think that it would actually drive people away from the scene, but in this instance, I suppose it worked because our YouTuber keeps going. He then looks up and bam, you can see the distinct image of a creature in the distance. An extremely tall, thin, humanoid thing with two sirens sticking out at the top of its body as it's standing on the top of a hill roughly 100 meters away from X71N. Naturally, he starts to run, but in the video his camera begins cutting in and out. Potentially the sounds that Siren Head is emitting are interfering with it, I'm not too sure. But as I stated earlier, Siren Head is fast and you can't outrun it. The YouTuber realizes this and instead opts to hide behind a rock. Clearly he posted the video, so obviously this worked out and he didn't get killed by Siren Head, but right at the end of the video, you see Siren Head only a few meters away walking past our YouTuber. Really quick thinking hiding behind the rock, or else Siren Head assuredly would have got him and we never even would have known about it because that video never would have got posted in the first place. Number 4 on this list is from another YouTuber named DX Army. This video was filmed in Tanyard Creek, and as we will look at later in our video, that site is particularly scary based on a Siren Head related crime many years prior. In the DX Army video, there is a party of a few boys with the mission to go out and see for themselves if Siren Head is the real deal or if the story that they had heard is completely made up. Now, what makes this a little different, and the fact that I have it higher on this list than the other filmed encounter, is the fact that it was a live video. So editing after the fact or doctoring the video to add Siren Head, it isn't possible. After stumbling through the woods for quite a while, the group starts to hear some strange noises. Noises that don't make sense when you're in the middle of the woods at night. Starting to get a little bit freaked out, thinking that they may have actually stumbled upon something, they try to find their way back. But honestly, their sense of direction is truly atrocious. Moving through the woods pretty quickly, their biggest fears do become realized, and they stumble across what very clearly looks to be the outline of Siren Head. They obviously hightail it out of there and shockingly all survive, but that should teach them, and anybody else for that matter, that going out of your way and looking for Siren Head probably isn't the best idea. Number 3 on this list comes from a Reddit user named Isaiah. Isaiah is a 22-year-old who used to live in the rural areas of Oklahoma. He doesn't live there anymore though because of the encounter that he had with Siren Head. Now, the area that he used to live has a lot of tornadoes, and it wasn't uncommon to hear sirens warning people about such tornadoes. One afternoon while he was home by himself, he started to hear these sirens and assumed that it was just the tornado warning. But after he went to go check his phone, he realized that the tests, they weren't supposed to be scheduled for today. Isaiah quickly grabbed his dog and took her downstairs. He looked out the window to see what was going on, and in the distance, he saw a tall creature climbing out of the woods. Now, he couldn't make out exactly what it is, but as the sounds of siren got louder and louder, he clued in. Siren Head. Scrambling around the house, he locked all the doors and shut off all the lights in his home and grabbed his noise-canceling headphones. He put his headphones on, but the sound of sirens kept getting louder and louder. He took another look out of the window, and Siren Head was directly outside. He then ran to the back of his basement and clutched his dog, and then silence. Now, for a second, he thought it might be over, but then he hears his dead best friend. "Come outside, Isaiah. Come outside. I miss you." He wasn't fooled though and held his ground in the basement. The friend's pleas got more and more desperate, but he didn't budge and turned the music up to max on his phone to block out all of the other sounds. After 30 minutes sitting in the basement listening to his music on blast, he went to check the window and Siren Head was gone. He moved out of that home a month later and he vowed to never live near a forest again. Number 2 on this list is from a Reddit user who claims she is a survivor of Siren Head. Kayla Prue is a 34-year-old woman who lives in Seattle. She had her encounter with Siren Head 8 years ago now and is very lucky to still be alive and telling the tale. Now, when she initially came forward about her encounter, she subbed in a bear in place for Siren Head. It was only after these drawings surfaced that she felt comfortable telling the whole truth. Off for a camping trip with her boyfriend at the time, Dylan Dobson, the pair was in a very remote area in British Columbia, Canada. They had been portaging that day and had just finished setting up their campsite and was just about to get a fire going. Right as they were doing that though, they heard some cracks in the trees. Startled, they turned around to take a look, but couldn't see anything. As they were checking their surroundings though, they heard the distinctive voice of a man that they'd encountered earlier that day on their canoe trip. He was saying, "Help, I'm hurt, and I can't get up, please somebody help me." The pair stopped what they were doing and went directly towards the voice, grabbing their flashlights since it was starting to get dark outside. The voice was getting louder and louder as they made their way through, and they thought that they were about to come upon it. Just as they got through a pile of trees though, that's when Siren Head appeared. The sounds of an excruciatingly large siren filled the air. Kayla still says that she has never heard anything louder in her life, saying that "I thought my ears were bleeding." Both immobilized by the sound for a second, Siren Head took his opportunity and smacked Kayla's boyfriend Dylan to the ground, where it proceeded to viciously tear his arm clean off of his body. Kayla saw Dylan's mouth moving in what she presumed to be a scream, but couldn't even hear the sounds due to the ringing of the sirens. To this day, she regrets what she did next, but she also realizes that there's nothing that she could have done. Kayla turns around and she runs, leaving Dylan to die alone at the hands of Siren Head. She runs through the woods as fast as she can, straight back to her campsite, not even stopping to grab any of her belongings. She jumps into the canoe that they had by the water and canoes for the next 5 hours straight to get back to where they had started. Now, she says it has taken her countless trips to therapy to even get to the point where she is capable of talking about her experience. Now, could I believe that this story was just a bear? Yeah, no, I could. Could I also believe that it was Siren Head? Yeah, maybe. At the end of the day, she believes that no amount of therapy will ever fix the guilt she feels or make her forget the brutal sound of Siren Head. Number 1 is the classic story from a man named Chad Gewecke. This story is often regarded to be one of the first encounters with Siren Head that many people believe to be true, and therefore I felt like it was necessary to include on this list. 30 years ago, in a beautiful location called Tanya Creek, the same location our previous YouTubers were filming at, Chad and several of his friends were out hiking. This was sadly the last hike that many of them would take though. As they were traversing through the scenery, they took a moment to catch their breath. That was when they heard the sounds of, believe it or not, them. The sound was shifting and morphing, but it sounded as if they were speaking. This clearly spooked the group, but at this point, they were in a decent sized formation, and their curiosity outweighed the fear of what could be causing this noise. The sounds were coming from a little bit deeper into the bush than they were, so they had to abandon the path and head into the forest to see where these noises were coming from. As they got closer, the sounds grew louder and louder, and it truly sounded as if they were speaking. Then, before they knew it or could even respond, Siren Head was upon them. Snatching their bodies and chucking them as if they were action figures, he shredded through the group, brutally murdering every single one of them. Every single one of them except for Chad. Chad got knocked to the ground by Siren Head, but was able to survive. He did sustain some bumps and bruises, but was able to rally himself fast enough to run out of there and get to safety. His friends, they weren't so lucky though. When the authorities came back to that site, the bodies of his friends were gone, most likely dragged to Siren Head's lair, never to be seen again.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Beast of Gewecke. Between 1764 to 1767, people in Gewecke, France were fearing for their lives. A terrifying beast was stalking the town and taking the lives of many of the residents. This beast was described as a large wolf or something like a large calf or horse. Calf as in cow, not. Imagine like a large calf. like someone's leg. Sorry. It was covered in reddish gray fur and had a long tail like a panther. It also apparently had a black stripe on its back and talons on its feet. The first victims were a bunch of hunters. The remains of 16 hunters were found in the forest, their heads all decapitated, their limbs scattered about. It is said that in the end 100 individuals died at the hands of this beast. To make matters worse, it also had the tendency to rip out its victims' throats. One terrifying encounter happened to a girl named Jean Boulet on June 30th in 1764. She was tending to a flock of sheep when this creature attacked and killed her. That's not all though. Another woman was attending to her cattle when the beast attacked her as well. Thankfully, she was able to escape it. She described it as, I quote, like a wolf, yet not like a wolf. The last time it ever threatened the town was on October 8th, 1764. A group of hunters set out to capture and kill this beast. The beast had previously mauled a number of people on that day. Later on, the hunters found it and shot at it. They didn't kill it, but they did drive the beast out of their town. Did he flee to another town? Did he go into hiding? Who knows? In our fourth spot today we have the El Chupacabra. El Chupacabra is a very creepy creature with vampire type tendencies. They like to attack animals and then drain them completely of their blood. When they're done, they just leave the animal's carcass and run off, which is quite strange. Normal animals like to feast on the meat, but this creature is only interested in the blood. So this creature has been described in a variety of ways. Some say it's like a weird reptilian kangaroo, whereas others say it looks like a hairless canine with red glowing eyes. Nonetheless, it's creepy. So the first reported sighting of a chupacabra dates back to 1887 in Wexford County. Two lumberjacks were in the forest when they saw a weird creature dart by them. They described the creature as having a man's body, but a dog's head. It didn't stop there though. In 1938, a man named Robert Fortney reported a terrifying encounter with this beast as well. He said that there were 5 of them that surrounded him and then attacked him. He said that one of the 5 walked on 2 legs. Another creepy encounter took place in 1961. A night watchman in Michigan was patrolling the grounds of a manufacturing plant when he saw something weird in the distance. At first, he thought it was a person. That was until he got closer and realized that this person had dog-like features. He took out his gun and shot at the beast, but it did nothing. The last sighting that I want to talk about is one that gives me the heebie-jeebies. This story takes place in 1995 in Puerto Rico. A number of farmers would wake up and find their goats, sheep, and cows dead with a weird bite mark on their neck. Their animals were completely drained of blood. So does this mean that the chupacabra is real? If not, what was sucking the blood out of those farm animals? Moving on at number 3, we have the demon cat. Now this is a cryptid that apparently stalks Washington, D.C. It all started back in the 1800s. According to a report in the newspaper, this weird cat appeared and scared a group of security guards. They all fired at the cat, but before the bullet could even hit the cat, it disappeared right in front of their eyes. Then in January of 1898, a watchman was patrolling around when he saw this demon cat come right towards him. The closer it got to him, the bigger it got. Some say it got as big as a tiger. Others say it got to the size of an elephant. The massive beast then snarled and let out a massive hiss. It leaped towards the watchman, but it disappeared right in front of his eyes before it attacked him. That same year, the cat made many more appearances. In fact, it's believed that the cat shows itself right before disaster strikes. It appeared before Lincoln was shot, before the stock market crashed in 1929, and right before JFK was killed. So before the next devastating thing happens, this beast might make a return. Moving on to number 2, we have the Mongolian death worm. The Mongolian death worm is a famous cryptid in China. It's said to lurk in the Gobi Desert and is described as being this giant red type worm creature. In fact, its Japanese name literally translates to large intestine worm. To make matters worse, apparently it can spit poison at its victims from afar. It's believed that this acid-like venom is so strong that it can kill a camel or horse. Over the years, there have been a number of terrifying encounters with this massive worm. One story that gets shared around a lot involves a young boy who gets followed home by this worm. The next day, his dead body was found by his home. It's believed that he ended up touching the worm and died doing so. His family knew that the worm was behind his death, so they headed out on a trail in the sand looking for it to get revenge. But the family never returned home. Now that's more of a legend. Let's talk about a supposed real encounter with this slithery dude. The first apparent real sighting sighting was during the 19th century. Someone was out in the desert when they saw this creature slithering around. They said it looked like a cow's intestine. He watched this creature for quite some time and actually saw it strike and kill another creature. A more recent sighting took place in 2013. People were out looking for it and actually found it, and apparently even caught this creature on camera. But who even knows what happened to this footage, because I want to see it for myself. I swear, I need my own myth-busting show or something. And in our number 1 spot today, we got Spring-Heeled Jack. Dude, the legend of Spring-Heeled Jack is a pretty freaking creepy one. What makes it even creepier is the fact that a number of people encountered this weird half-man, half-beast creature. That's multiple witnesses, and they all had similar encounters, which makes me believe that this cryptid might be real. So back in Victorian England, people were worried about this weird man-type creature named Spring-Heeled Jack. According to a number of stories, Jack would visit homes in the middle of the night, ring the doorbell, and when someone would answer it, he would attack them. Now, he was given the name Spring-Heeled Jack as witnesses said he had the ability to jump great distances and heights, something no normal human can do. Victims say he looked like a man dressed in red shoes and armor. Others claim he would wear loose-fitting black clothes with a helmet, or that he had wings and horns and sharp fangs that formed a wicked smile. The first sighting of Spring-Heeled Jack was October of 1837. A woman named Mary Stevens was walking in her town when this creature jumped from a tall building down to the ground right in front of her. He then attacked her and tried to kiss her, but someone heard her screams and thankfully came to the rescue. They then both saw this creature leap away. And Mary wasn't the only victim terrorized by Jack. A girl named Lucy Scales was also attacked by it. Same with a woman named Jane Alsop. She was attacked and strangled by this creature, but she managed to free herself. Jane said this about Jack, and I quote, "He was wearing a kind of helmet and a tight-fitting white costume like an oilskin, and he vomited blue and white flames." Soon, more and more people were going to the police terrified by Spring-Heeled Jack. One person said they saw Jack jumping from rooftop to rooftop. They said he had glowing red eyes and big sharp claws. Due to the fact that so many people encountered Jack, I'm telling you, it might be real. Was he a human? Was he a cryptid? Was he a weird human creature thing? I don't even know, man. Starting off this countdown, we have the Mothman. The legend of the Mothman is a really freaking eerie one. So the Mothman originates from West Virginia folklore. Apparently, it's a large 10-foot tall gray creature with red glowing eyes and wings, and has the ability to fly over 100 miles per hour, so he's pretty damn fast. This creature has been spotted on a number of occasions. In particular, it's believed that once you see him, bad things are going to happen, so he's kinda like an omen. The first report of this creature was on November 15th, 1966. On this night, 2 sets of young couples drove out to Lover's Lane to get frisky in their cars. It was Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallet. That's when one of the couples noticed a massive creature with red glowing eyes watching them from afar. The couple, Roger and Linda, freaked out and sped on out of there, but the Mothman followed their car and tried to attack them. Thankfully, they made it out alright, but they were hella spooked and reported their encounter to the police. During the next couple of days, a number of different people reported similar encounters to the police as well. Like 2 volunteer firemen claimed they saw a large bird with red eyes. Then a contractor named Newell Partridge was out in a field at night when he saw the creature in the distance. He shined his light in his eyes and he said they glowed like bicycle reflectors. He then went on to blame this creature for the disappearance of his German Shepherd. So people all around town were hella freaked out. The scariest sighting would have to be in 1967, around the time the Silver Bridge collapsed. Apparently, people who saw the Mothman then went on to receive premonitions of the bridge collapsing and experienced terrible nightmares. And on the day that the bridge actually did collapse, a number of witnesses claimed that they saw the Mothman perched nearby just watching. That's creepy. As long as he doesn't come to Canada though, I'm good. In our 4th spot today, we have the red-eyed roadside cryptid. This is the name given to a creature that a man named Britton saw one early morning in Texas. So it was June 20th, 2000 at around 1 a.m. He had just gotten off work and was headed home. Now on the route that he takes, he explained that there's this 90-degree turn and you have to go really slow and be careful because sometimes they find cattle out on the road. So he was making his turn when all of a sudden he saw it. and he knew right away it was not an animal of any sorts. This creature had red eyes and was on 2 feet and had black hair all over its body. So Britton, being the curious man that he was, got out of his truck and shined a flashlight at this creature. That's when the creature raised its arm above its head and let out an ear-piercing scream. It then turned around and ran behind a house. So the man immediately got back in his truck and drove away in disbelief of what he just saw. But according to him, he has heard this scream at night before, but he never knew where it was coming from or who or what was making this noise. After doing research, he found out that this creature he saw is related to the Bigfoot. Sounds like it's Bigfoot's noisy younger cousin. Either way, be careful when driving late at night. In our third spot, we have the Shuck. The Shuck is a ghostly black dog from East England legends. Don't be fooled though, this dog is anything but cute, cuddly, and friendly. It's got a thirst for blood. Those who have seen it describes it as a big black hound. Some even say it has red or green glowing eyes. Now this ghost dog is said to terrorize rural towns and villages across the country. The most famous as well as most horrifying encounter would be from 1577. One night a bunch of villagers had to seek shelter in a church during a huge thunderstorm. As they were huddled in there, a big black dog burst through the church door and attacked a man and his son. It also knocked down one of the church's pillars, so a part of it actually collapsed. It then ran out of the church, and as it did, it apparently left scorch marks on the wood of the church floor and door. Those marks are apparently still there today. People were horrified by this encounter, and that's how the legend of the Shuck came to life. In our second spot, we have the Green Beach Monster. This is apparently a very strong and scaly, slimy beast that hunts for prey in Ohio rivers. The first encounter happened to a woman named Miss Johnson and her friend. It was August 21st of 1955, and the two ladies were enjoying a swim in a river. One of the ladies was in an inflatable tube, just, relaxing, while Mrs. Johnson swam by. That's when all of a sudden she was dragged underwater. She struggled to free herself, and thankfully she managed to. She resurfaced only to be dragged under again. Thankfully, Miss Johnson managed to free herself once again. She did so by kicking this thing. According to Miss Johnson, the hand that grabbed her was large and hairy and had sharp nails or claws. She also knew that this beast was large and strong just based on the way it grabbed her and pulled her down and held her down. In fact, Miss Johnson was left with multiple bruises and wounds on her leg from this creature. Without this, people probably would have thought that she was just lying. But she had a full-on claw print bruise on her leg. Obviously, the two reported the encounter to the police, and that's when they got a visit from an Air Force colonel. He interviewed them both and took very detailed notes. Before he left, he warned the two women to never mention this encounter ever again. And I mean, that sounds hella suspicious. As if the government had captured this cryptid and then it escaped and they didn't want people to know. So anyway, they should get one of those memory erasers from Men in Black. You know what I'm talking about, the little ksh. And in a number one spot today, we have the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is a very famous cryptid said to live in the Pine Barrens region of New Jersey. Legend goes that in 1735, a mother gave birth to a child that she did not want. Her and her husband couldn't afford to raise another child. Apparently, she had 12 children already, and after she found out she was pregnant again, she cursed the child and said it was a devil child. In fact, one version of the story, apparently she offered her unborn son to the devil. Anyways, she ended up giving birth to the child and all was well and normal. But as days went by, the kid started to transition into this weird creature. It grew hooves, it had a goat's head and bat wings and a forked tail. It would growl and scream. In another version, the mother was actually apparently a witch and the child's father was the devil himself. And that was the creature that they gave birth to. Either way, it's creepy as hell. So there have been reported sightings of this creature as early as the 1820s. Some say it has a horse's head, long claws, and bat-like wings, whereas others say it looks like a kangaroo with wings. In 1909, that's when this creature terrorized New Jersey. Tons of people were apparently seeing this creature. In fact, due to all the sightings, workers were advised to stay home and schools were closed. Just saying that if they thought that this creature was fake, none of that would have happened, so they were scared for a reason. Eventually, the hype around the Jersey Devil died down. That was until 1927. A taxi driver in Salem City was minding his own business when apparently he encountered this beast. The beast was then following the man and was pounding on the roof of his taxi. Hey, I don't know, maybe he just needed a lift. Then in the 1960s, residents were woken up in the middle of the night to strange screaming. They all knew that this was the cries from the Jersey Devil. And in 1980, the Jersey Devil struck again. Officers and forest rangers were called onto a scene at a farm where a bunch of pigs had been killed. Their bodies were all scratched and ripped open, the back of their heads were eaten. But there was no blood on the ground. There's no explanation for what could have done this to the pigs, besides the legendary Jersey Devil.